Hello, Illia Heart.
Hi, Jackie.
Hello. I do apologise for the late start. Illia's coming to us from Canada. So I'll just do a short introduction just to let you know a bit about Illia from what I know or what I've read. So Illia Heart is a pioneer in the field of holistic health and consciousness. She has authored 2 books to date, Wholistic Health Made Easy and The Body Electronics Experience. Illia's education has been fourfold. Ayurvedic Yogic science is 1. Number 2, traditional teachings and plant medicine of North and South America. 3, body electronics, the evolution of consciousness. 4, spiritual physics. She has been actively teaching in private practice for more than 3 decades. So body electronics is a healing modality focusing on consciousness change through the holistic construct. It is practiced through the study and application of principles, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Illia Heart holds the BE intensives where the process is taught and facilitated. Point holding is a specific form of sustained acupressure that unlocks the calcification that holds suppressed memory, emotion, and word patterns. By unlocking trauma sequentially, we have our opportunity to apply the energies of transmutation. With each release of resistance, anything less than love, we gain ever greater awareness, and the process continues. This results in higher consciousness where greater compassion flourishes within the community. That sounds absolutely wonderful. Hi, Illia.
Hi. Yeah, body electronics is a very in-depth holistic practice. It's very multidimensional. So what I wanted to say about that, well, let's go back to sort of the umbrella, the words that I use as an umbrella for my work, for those 4 different aspects of my work, because I call everything is sort of umbrellaed or contained within the words the Gnostic way. And I use those words very specifically. The word Gnostic refers to the gnosis, so which can be translated as knowledge or wisdom. And this particular way that I'm using the word Gnostic is very specific to the internal wisdom and knowledge. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to say right off the bat. So anything that we talk about that's really where the center is that internal.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Because a lot of people are talking about go within.
Yes, we hear that a lot, yet
it's understanding what that really means is so interesting.
And how to go within, because we have to ask the question, what is keeping us from that internal knowing, that center? Some of us touch upon it in our lives. Probably anybody who is working with holistic health and consciousness has had a spiritual, a very aware spiritual experience in their life. And that experience, then for all of us, it really makes us want to go further and further. So then we have to ask ourselves that question, what is keeping us from going further? Because we often get stalled, or we get to this certain point. And I've seen it, many, many times over the years within myself, and of course within, within all of the facilitation that I've done for others. People get to a certain point, and then there seems to be a wall or something that's keeping us from going deeper. And so that is really why I sought out methods and protocols, that is those 4 things that you mentioned, Jackie, because one of the big things that keep us from going deeper, and as far as I know, as long as we're in the physical body, we just continually go deeper and deeper. There's no arrival point. We just keep getting more deeper toward that internal connection. Just 1 second here. Speaking of connections, I was just shown that my computer, we don't want any more technological. There we go. So one of the things that keeps us from going deeper is what we call in body electronics resistance. And resistance, like you mentioned, it can be simplistically defined as anything less than unconditional love. So that's, pretty much everything can be considered resistance, but there are levels to the resistance. And as we release those resistances, which have emotional components, mental components, even physical components and spiritual components, as we release those, we get to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the awareness. Yeah.
Lovely. Honestly, because you do hear it so often about go within, and you've got the answers always within you, but we don't, well, I'm speaking generally, we don't believe that we have, because we look outside of ourselves. As soon as anything goes wrong, you just automatically think others know better than yourself.
Yeah, that's what we do when we're gaining that internal trust.
Yes.
And as we go deeper, we get more and more trusting. Our discernment gets honed. And as that happens, we just gain that trust, and we start to listen more to that internal guidance, to that intuition. And so one of the things that came to me, when I speak publicly, Jackie, I take a detox bath almost each morning, but I really concentrate in my bath when I'm speaking publicly about what wants to come out that particular day. And this morning, what I got was simplicity, complexity, simplicity. So that can be shown in almost everything, if we think of those 3 things. So simplicity in its base form is unconscious. And some of the, I would say, just some of the things that we would notice about that in the unconscious form would be that all or nothing, that very black and white mentality. So that would be unconscious simplicity. As we're moving into more and more and more complexity, we're getting more awareness. We're gaining that awareness, and we're going through the different emotions and the types of emotions as we're going, what we call in body electronics, going upscale. And then we come to the heart, and at the heart, things are very, very, very complex. And that can be shown electronically as well as, how we experience things physically. So we get the sine wave, for instance, is extremely slow in that unconsciousness. Then we move up into complexity where the heart is, heart thymus. And then if we keep moving, we'll go back to complexity, or we'll go back to simplicity, but we're going upscale. And that simplicity is then at its height, unconditional love. So that's, that can become a little bit confusing, but I wanted to just put that out there, where we're going from simplicity to complexity to simplicity. And we have to go through in the center of all of the complexity is where we have to do a lot of transmutation. That's where the healing crisis comes into being, where we really have to be willing to release, to be able to transmute and release those hidden resistances, those things that we have held unconsciously. And they come more and more and more to our awareness as we come up into that complexity.
So many things that I'm thinking about there. I sort of get that. Is that like where we keep saying there we need to raise our vibration? Is that on the, is it around that as well? Raising the vibration by clearing all your shadow?
Vibration is automatically upgraded as we release resistance. The only thing that is keeping us from that unconditional love, from that higher simplicity, is our own resistance. So the patterns of resistance that we have suppressed, and sometimes they, we can see them in the physical body, but sometimes they're really hidden. They're even hidden from us physically. So as we release anything that we release less than love, we are going to then access that unconditional love that's always present. That energy, or all of those higher vibrations, or that higher consciousness, always present. And as we release the resistance, we find that presence. And it's a really interesting process that we go through as we release patterns, patterns of resistance, which can include, they can include mental patterns, but they're always, there's always an emotional component. So I really focus a lot on emotion, because people get caught in emotional levels. And in body electronics, we use an old Tibetan emotional format that has 49 levels. So there's 7 times 7. So we have, I'll just go through them quickly, because it's really good to understand those levels in order to, we want to go from unconsciousness, which is that's the base level. So that is, connected to, if we're looking at it in terms of chakras, that's connected to our base. And from there, we move up into apathy. From apathy, we move into grief. From grief, we move into fear. From fear, we move into anger. From anger, we move into pain, which is one that most people usually get caught in anger and sort of stay there for long periods of time, perhaps even eons, because going from anger into our own personal pain, anything that is, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually painful, we tend to avoid that. You can see that even within our medical system. There's a lot of things that, as long as we want to avoid the pain, the discomfort. So the here is where the pain is reflected to the pituitary. And then we move up into what we call in body electronics enthusiasm. Enthusiasm resonates with the pineal. And enthusiasm comes from the word enthuse, which is a Greek word, which means God in you, or the inner essence, or whatever we want to call it. But it is that connection that we have into that internal process. And that energy that's held here is the energy of transmutation that we can apply to anything less than love. So all of those emotional components can be transmuted with that energy. So it's always present. Is the point of that, is that energy is always present. So I want to just jump into a little bit more about emotion here. So there's a principle that we keep really, really close to our awareness. And that is lovingly and willingly endure all things. And for many years, I changed up those words, and I attempted to revise those words, but I always came back to that. Lovingly and willingly endure all things. And when we are experiencing things in the present moment, that's really key to change. That's key to transmutation, is we have to be aware of what is in the present. When we are aware of the emotion that we are, that we're asking, if we're doing transmutational work, if we're doing that inner work, we are continuously asking on some level. Sometimes we can make special time for that, but generally we're always asking to be aware and to be present with emotion. And that can really lead us. The emotion can really be the doorway into higher consciousness by the release of it. So when we feel emotion, we invite it, we embrace it. We know that it's ours. We know that it comes from within us. It's something that we have, that we have within us. And so we're going to lovingly and willingly feel that emotion. As we do that, we can then apply what I call the 3 powers. And the 3 powers of transmutation within the emotion is forgiveness, gratitude, and love. And that's the love we can access, whatever level of love we can access, that pure love that we all know. Mm-hmm. And that changes too. As we move into higher levels of emotion, we find the access to that gets more and more and more unconditional. So that's really a real basic model of transmutation. But again, back to the simplicity. If we keep that, very, very simple, lovingly and willingly endure all things, which means be present with whatever we're willing to change within, and apply those 3 powers, and really apply them. Really feel the forgiveness. Really, I've wept and wept the power of forgiveness and gratitude. It's like I've been to the point with gratitude where I'm weeping into the ground, and it's this uncontrollable weeping through this intense feelings of gratitude, and that is the power of transmutation. I tend to stay away from those sort of pattern responses we have in forgiveness and gratitude. Like sometimes we have to say we're sorry. In our daily lives, we've made a mistake, whether it be toward ourselves or another, and those words are important at times. But when we're doing the internal work, those words "I'm sorry" can kind of sidetrack from true forgiveness, from that true power. There's a power of forgiveness that those words can often sidetrack. So go past those words is what I'm saying. And the same with gratitude. So if we say, thank you, or those words, of course, there's appropriate times to say those in our lives. But when we're doing the internal work, go past those words and go into the gratitude that is a power. It's a tremendous power that has power to change or permanently transmute. Transmute means permanent change, which means that energy that's being held emotionally, mostly unconsciously. John Whitman Ray, who was the founder of body electronics, he often said that humanity is 99% unconscious. And I feel that, to be I used to think that he was kidding, but now I'm seeing that perhaps that is truth. And we have to start there and release resistance, release and release and release, and gain that awareness, gain that enlightenment as we release the resistance, release what we have resisted and then made suppressed in the unconscious of our, of our consciousness. So, it's just by releasing that gradually. It's this gradual release of resistance. It's just really it's a lifestyle. It's a process. It's a life process. Let's put it that way.
I work with Ho'oponopono. So what you've just said, those 4 statements, I mean, well, Mabel Katzel says, thank you and I love you is the 2 most important of the 4 statements. But then you're saying even saying thank you is not real gratitude. We really need to feel the gratitude.
The energy, we could use words to step into the energy. So we can use those words to step into it. But often I hear people using the words and not seeing that as an entrance way into the power. Mm-hmm. So the power is in the energy behind the words. That's the power of change. That's the power of transmutation. And I love, are you practicing Dr. Lee's work? Jackie, is that? Pardon me?
Dr. Hugh Len, Illia
Heart. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What beautiful work.
Absolutely. 100% responsibility without the heaviness.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's actually the 4 things we work with is the love, the forgiveness, the gratitude, also saying I'm sorry in with the forgiveness. But as I say, Mabel Katz has always, would really say the 2 most positive ones, that if you said this in your mind all day long, I love you and thank you. So I love you connects you to your higher self, I believe. And then thank you, you're just in gratitude of everything that we've got, of life. What's a better word then than thank you if we're really going into the gratitude?
No, those words are perfectly fine. They're perfectly fine to remind us to be in that energy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, those words are perfectly fine. I'm not saying not to use those words, but they can be the doorway. They can be the reminders for us to embrace that energy and increase that energy, to really increase the levels of forgiveness and the levels of gratitude and the levels of love.
Amazing, because last week we did, I'm doing a 6-week course now, Happiness and Ho'oponopono. And so last week was the week about forgiveness. And so we really went into forgiveness and everything, because over the years that I've been running the Positive Living, we've had many situations, speakers, talking about forgiveness. So I do feel I know a bit about forgiveness, but it's going deep into that real understanding of what really forgiveness is. No good just saying the word. It's what's underneath the word and what meaning you bring to it. Yes. And when you say, forgiveness for self and forgiveness for others, so the emotion that goes with that is really interesting. What brought you to the electronics, body electronics? What drew you to that, Illia?
Oh, that's a long story, but I'll attempt to simplify it. So I had just completed my Ayurvedic degree and opened up a practice with a naturopath, and this was back in the late 90s. And I'd studied for many years, and it was time for me to start opening a practice and doing that work. And I think it had been a couple of months, and there was a friend of mine. I was in Ontario at the shores of Lake Huron at that time. That's where I was living and raising my children. And there was a man who would often come through that area, and he was like a traveling salesman of all things metaphysical. And we were very close to the US border at that time. So he would often stop and visit us and then go on to the US and then come back again. and visits on his way back. And he brought body electronics to me this, a couple of months after I just opened a practice. And I said to him very emphatically, I am not interested in learning anything right now. I am going to do my Ayurvedic practice, and that's all I'm willing to do at this moment. But I will, when you come back through the area, I will gather, some. We had a huge community there of holistic minded people, and I'll gather people, and you can present it to them. And so we did that, and I went to the kitchen to make tea, as he had put in it was an old VHS tape at that time, and he was sharing one of John Whitman Ray's videos, and I was standing at the stove, and all of a sudden I heard John's booming voice, and I don't even know what he said. It wasn't really what it said. It was really the tone. And all of a sudden I got this electrical impulse that went through me and hit me in the heart. And and I remember thinking, oh no. Because when that happens, you have to go forward with it. And so I didn't do very much in the practice. I went into full study of body electronics at that point. And John was still alive at that time. This was in 1999. And so I was reading all the, John wrote 3 very powerful books called Logic and Sequence. And they can be found free of charge on my website. They're out of print. And so I've put them on my website. And there's 999 pages of pure metaphysical beauty. It's they're just very beautiful and in-depth books. And so I was reading those, and I was just really trying to absorb as much as I could. I was on the nutritional program, and he was still teaching in New Zealand at that time. He was living on Rarotonga in the Cook Islands, but he taught mostly over in New Zealand. And I was just eating, breathing, and sleeping body electronics. And John would often come to me in my dreams and give me teachings. And then in 2001, he was going to come to Canada, and he wouldn't have been on North American soil since I think it was 1989 when he left. He was a U.S. born, and anyway, he was coming to Canada. He was going to teach the first instructor's course in North America in all of those years. And I put my name in, and I was, just really, really enthusiastically preparing for that. And he passed away suddenly. And it was, just it was really it was a real shock to my system. Let's put it that way. I grieved over John like I grieved over my father. It was a very interesting experience. But then after he passed, I could have full communication with him in waking hours. I didn't have to wait to go to sleep.
Wow.
I could ask questions, and he would answer them immediately. And that was really the onset to where I really started to study. And he said, he kept saying to me, you have to go to Doug, which he was referring to Doug Morrison, who was his protege. Doug spent 20 years with John. And anyway, to make a long story short, Doug Morrison came from New Zealand back to the US into Pennsylvania, and started, he came with his family, and he started teaching there. And I started studying with Doug right away. And so I went to everything from early 2002 to 2007 when Doug retired. I went to all of his intensives. including 2 instructor seminars and a visualization and consciousness course. And I just really threw myself into it. It's such a powerful process that I just kept going with it. And I've been teaching now for 20 years. I took my first instructor in 2003. So it's been 20 years now that I've been instructing body electronics. So anyway, that's a long answer to a little question, Jackie.
Really, because yeah, there's apparently only 2 main. You did say something about it's just you and one other.
Yes. There's 2 of us in the world that have, out of, I don't know how many Doug taught to be instructors, many. And so there's 2 of us that are currently practicing, and one is in Wales, and his name is Peter Hind. And you can look him up. If you just put in Peter Hind in body electronics, you'll find him. And he's giving intensives, and we've worked together for many, many years. He's a beautiful, really, really beautiful person. Yeah.
That's so lovely. These tulips behind me, they were taken in Wales last week.
Oh.
Now, I'd not been to Wales before. Well, once, very slightly, just for a little dog show that I went with my sister-in-law, but we literally went and come back. Whereas last week we went for 3 days to Wales, to this beautiful place called Port Marion. It's like an Italian village, but in Wales, and it draws so many people there. And this was at the entrance. It was absolutely beautiful. So yes, I'll definitely look him up. When you were talking about when you said about John, when you first heard him in that booming voice, and then when you said he passed, I goosed completely. What would you say that is when someone, is it when you hear the truth that you goose completely?
Yeah, I mean, when you have goosebumps?
Yeah.
Well, that's really an electricity that's going through your body. It's a form of electricity. We are electrical beings. We are electromagnetic, of course. Everything that we are is just a vibration of electromagnetics. So when we get what we call goosebumps, is that electricity moving somehow through us. And it can be, for many, many different reasons, but there's usually a connection, some form of a connection that we know it when we hear it. And, that connection, that electrical connection moves through us.
We often think when, there's one lady specifically that a friend of mine, Dee, and whenever she's talking, it's always such an interesting conversation, but I goose it so much of what she says. There's probably a better word for it than that, tingle, whatever. But, and you think, oh, that's the truth. When you hear that, obviously it happens a lot, but, and when you said that when he passed, it did it again, so yeah. And I thought that would be something with what you've been talking about, you would understand in the emotions what that means for us. Yeah, it can be anywhere, wherever we are in the emotional body is really, really important to our perception. So that's very, very important. So if we are, let's say we are in apathy, for instance, so our perception will be very, very different of the exact same thing of someone who is in fear or anger or pain. Mm-hmm. So and I'll add here too, when people, I always congratulate people when they get to the level of anger that resonates with the thyroid and parathyroid, because anger, every human has all of these emotions. Oh, yeah. This is the emotional body of the human, of every human being. And animals have different emotional bodies. Plants have different emotional bodies, but humans have the same emotional body. It's species oriented. And so we often find that we have resistance or judgment. Resistance is just another word for judgment around the emotion of anger, particularly women. And that's a lot to do with social programming. But
when we get to anger, to when we really get to that emotion, that true emotion, it's not necessarily what we think of as anger. To something, when we hear somebody that's angry, or or something that we maybe look at as destructive, that's not necessarily what anger feels or looks like at all. Anger is a very powerful emotion that, in its suppression, creates that external environment that, out of the unconscious anger is where I think we can see destruction and violence and different things. But when we actually become aware of anger, we're working with it and we're embracing it. We're not projecting it. The projection of anger, that's something that we've been kind of, in that feeling that we want to resist it or suppress it, we actually end up then projecting it. So we're, it's in that inability to take responsibility that we just want to get rid of it. So we push it out. We try to push that energy out into the world. And to transmute, to really change it, we have to bring it into our awareness. We have to bring it close. We have to own it. And in that, we get to really feel what anger really is. And anger is directly connected with power and control. And so that goes from simplicity to complexity to simplicity too. So power and control, we often think of those as dirty words, because in the lower emotion, power and control is power and control over others. And we see that in the world. We see how people want to control others or have power over others. So then that energy becomes like this, something to avoid, something to suppress. But there is, when we get to the level of anger, we're actually getting to the place where we can clear all of the pseudo power and control, and we can start to truly embrace our own personal power and control that is connected to that inner essence. So we get to really, when we release, again, I'll say it, when we release the pseudo power and control, those issues and resistances and judgments we have around that, then we can really, truly get to that place where we can start to feel the power of love. That true power, the true powers. Yes. There are true powers in this world. And it's only through the transmutation of anything pseudo that we can actually access, because like I said earlier, all of those powers, all of the true powers are within us, and they're accessible all of the time, any moment. The only things that keep us from that is our own resistance. So by clearing our own resistance, then we come to those true powers. Then we're able to access that.
Do you have to go into altered state to access, when you're working with someone, do you have to get them into altered state to release the anger, or to even understand what the anger is for them? Or
no, it's really, these are things that we can only do for ourselves. We can be facilitated by another, but the true transmutation has to be done for ourselves. We have to do that ourselves. We have to clear those things ourselves. We have to do it with awareness. We have to do it with clarity. Everything that we do in our nutritional protocol, we're going to body electronics. I'm kind of sticking with body electronics for a while. So when we're doing the nutritional protocol, we're doing everything we can to become more and more and more aware. So we're not wanting to get into any kind of an altered state at all. We want to be present. We do that by, I call them the 5 components of nutritional ascent. So we need these things for our hormones to actually be produced, and our hormones need to be produced in order for the endocrine system, which is also system of chakras, which is also our emotional system. For those hormones, there's a physical component to each, to each of the higher levels of emotional, mental, and spiritual. So that foundation is physical. So we take, we call it nutrient saturation. So we prepare ourselves nutritionally, which encourages our body and our emotion and our mind to be present. So I'll just go through those 5 quickly. Anything that I talk about, you can read on my website. I have over 500, many more than 500 articles on my website. So anything that I say, you can just put in a search word and you'll find many articles about it.
Oh, marvelous. Could you just say what the website is for?
Sure. It's wholehealthcenter.com.
Wholehealthcenter.com. Thank you. Yeah. So the 5.
Yeah. So the 5, and I say that the 5 necessities, and of course, we can refine and always be refining our nutrition, but these are the 5 necessities that we need in order to really do that internal work. And I've seen people try to do it over the years without it, and it's not impossible, but it's very much more difficult. So the first thing is enzymes. Number 1 on the list is enzymes, particularly digestive enzymes. Once we get everything, our body starts to produce its own coenzyme and other forms of enzymes that aren't digestive. So when I say enzymes, I'm talking particularly about digestive enzymes. So we need a nice, clean digestive tract, and we need our nutrients assimilated. That can only be done through enzymes. And by the time, we used to say, in body electronics, we used to say by the time you're 30, you've run out of your stored enzymes, so you have to start to supplement. But in my practice, I do some iridology work, and I can see when someone is enzyme deficient and have some kind of an understanding about how prolonged that's been. And I'm seeing children that are enzyme deficient. There's many reasons for that. A lot of cooked food is one of them. But anyway, number 1 is enzymes. So a good full spectrum enzyme supplementation is really, really, really important. The second thing is trace minerals. There is a lack of trace minerals in our food due to a lack of trace minerals overusing the soil and not producing food from remineralized soil is really the issue here. So we really have to supplement trace minerals. Trace minerals are really important to the electrical components of the body, how everything connects. And of course, our brain is the big one. So the big electromagnetic connector there. So, but everything in our body is needing the trace minerals in order to make those electrical connections. Number 3 is raw protein. So raw protein has the full spectrum of amino acids. We need full spectrum amino acids in our diet, and almost everyone is not getting that. So there's a few simple things that I can suggest here. One of the things, if people can tolerate, and I say embrace, anything that the bees give as gifts, bee pollen is the most perfect food. It's the manna of amino acids. So it has all the full spectrum of amino acids. And so if we can take a little bit of bee pollen in the morning, crushed bee pollen, the bees really know how to protect their food. So they put an encapsulation on it. They can say it lasts hundreds or maybe even thousands of years. So you can crush it, really crush it, even 2 spoons together will do that. And just ingest a little bit of bee pollen in the morning. And then you're getting your amino acids. So and you're getting it raw. So it has to be raw pollen, not heated in any way.
How would you get that, Illia?
The best way to get it is from an apiary that's as close to you as possible. So it's the more local you get your bee pollen, the better.
Okay.
So yeah, just find some local bee pollen, and you don't need a lot, just a tiny little bit, like a quarter teaspoon is enough. You know, a pound of bee pollen goes a very, very long way. If you can't have anything that the bees provide, then anything like hemp hearts has a lot of raw protein in it. Sprouts has raw protein. So there's many other ways, you know, we can get raw protein as well, but I always mention bee pollen because it really is the best. So number 4 is probiotics. Probiotics are extremely important. We're in such an environment now. We're breathing, you know, we're eating things that upset our gastrointestinal. You know, everything we put on our skin, everything we absorb, everything is affecting the gastrointestinal. So we really, really need to supplement with good quality probiotics. And the 5th one is essential fatty acids. So, excuse me. Excuse me. So essential fatty acids are really, really important. Particularly we need our omega-3s. I take cod liver oil. Some really nice clean cod liver oil is really good for your omega-3s. You also get, you know, your vitamin D, and your vitamin A from cod liver oil. It's really important. And you know, there's many different kinds of good oils, but try to keep it on the omega-3s. We're getting we kind of get saturated with omega-6s, and we really want to supplement omega-3s. So those are the 5 in as quick as I can say them.
That's all on your website as well, that we can look that up.
It is. Yeah, it's all there.
Could you tell us what your day looks like?
My day?
Yeah. So to live the Gnostic way.
Okay. Well, that's a really, really, really good question. I'm going to just kind of go through my day. So my days would be dependent upon whether I'm working or not. So if I'm seeing clients, you know, that is my, you know, I work around seeing clients. So when I'm seeing clients, I only see one client a day in person. I'll only see one in person a day. And I ask that person to fast with me from the night before, from 6 p.m. I usually fast even earlier than that, maybe 3 p.m. But I ask that person to fast with me, and until I usually do an 11 a.m. Session, in-person session. So they're fasting, and in the morning they're doing a detoxification bath. And I'll also do, like I said earlier, I do that almost every day. But if I'm seeing a client, I will do that a very, very long and very intense, you know, where I do my internal work as well, of a detoxification bath. So
you say a bath, is that an actual sat in the bath?
Yeah, like I just soak in the bath for approximately an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also on my site. You can just put in the search bar detox bath, and I have a great recipe there. It's an Ayurvedic recipe, and it's a great recipe to draw out toxins. I feel we have to be very proactive in our detoxification process. So that gives you a little idea of what I do when I'm seeing a client in person. Now, if I have a free day and I'm not going anywhere, I'm not, you know, going out of the house. I live in a rural community. The picture behind you is just up the road. I took that picture. It's called Slocan Valley in the interior of British Columbia. And so if I'm not going out and I'm here, I'm this very pristine space that we have beautiful living water, like comes right out of the mountain. I'm right on the edge of a mountain. And so if I'm here and I'm I'm not planning on doing anything, I'm not going anywhere, I will make that day, and I do this often, several times a week, probably at least 3 times a week. I completely absorb myself in the detoxification process, which includes being present with any resistance or trauma, anything that wants to come into my awareness to be released. So I start off in the morning. I will take what I call detox. I try to avoid the word tea, but sometimes I use the word detox tea. It's actually an Ojibwe formula that was given to me by an elder in the late 80s. And so I'll have that tea. It's a really strong detoxification, and you have to stay pretty close to the bathroom for that. A lot of the detoxification comes through the bowels. So I'll start off with that. And then about mid-morning, between 10 and 11, I do a celery juice. So I'll juice about 8 ounces of celery juice. I take that. Then I'll have one meal, which it's not really, I say healthy keto, but it's not really keto, because I don't eat pork, and I don't eat a lot of what traditionally is known as keto. So it's kind of my own form of keto. So I make sure that I get a certain amount of protein. I have a protein smoothie that gets, I have 20 grams of protein. So I'm very conscious of making sure that I have all the nutrients that I need and all the live food that I need. So I eat potassium is extremely important in our diets. And I don't think, we need almost 5,000 milligrams of potassium a day. And I don't think anybody is getting that. So I'm really conscious of lots of leafy greens, lots of greens, potassium and magnesium. I also supplement. So I'll have one meal, and then and then after that, it's usually, like I said, usually between 3 and 4 o'clock. I'll fast. I'll do an intermittent fasting again until the following day. So so intermittent fasting is really, really important in my lifestyle. Eating a lot of raw food is really important, and organic, of course. And I love to garden. I get outside as much as possible. Right now we're just perfect. The gardens are just starting to go in. I'm have a small greenhouse, so I have lots of starts there that are ready to go to the garden very, very soon. And I'm going to grow as much food as possible, not only for myself but to share. And and that's basically my life. Yeah.
My goodness. Can you just talk about D3? Obviously, the sun is the best D3, I guess. But I've actually heard that if you take it, tablet-wise, capsule-wise, that is actually a rat poison.
I've never heard that. No, I've never heard that.
Yeah, this chap, I actually asked him if he'd want to come on, because I heard him say that, and he said they tried to make us believe we're doing the right thing by having D3 capsules, or whatever way you buy it, but that's actually a poison, and I'd never heard that.
No, I've never heard that either. I've been taking D3 because in the Northern Hemisphere, we have to be very conscious of our vitamin D levels, because it's the very important to the immune system.
Yeah. That's
one of the things about D3. I mean, there's different qualities in everything, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And just what they put D3 in, because it has to be like it's an oil soluble. It's not actually a vitamin. It's actually a hormone. So it has to be put into some kind of oil. So you can find like low quality ones that are put into soy oil or something that you don't want to ingest. So but get a really, really good quality vitamin D. Now the what I always recommend, if you get the best quality D3, it has to be with K2, because D3 can disrupt, a lot of D3 can disrupt calcium in your body. So, and the K2 will work with the D3 to make sure that the calcium is not being deposited where you don't want it to be deposited, in the arteries, for example. So K2 is really important.
Is K2, is the black pepper with it? Something about D3 with black pepper, no?
No, I think you're thinking about turmeric.
Oh, turmeric, yeah, with black pepper.
Yes, turmeric has to have some black pepper to be activated. The curcumin in the turmeric has to be activated with the black pepper.
And I've got two friends that I've spoken to recently. One, she's just done a 5-day fast, 5-day fast, but she did have water and herbal tea occasionally, but 5 days, and then she went back slowly onto juices. And the other girlfriend does occasionally a 4-day fast with not even water.
Wow, a dry fast. I mean, there's different thoughts about that. Dry fasting puts the body into a stress state. So you really, and that's actually the beauty of the dry fast, is the stress state. So that stress then will start to activate things to be discarded. And that's what you want. You want the detoxification from the fasting.
Would be very stressful, I would think.
With dry fast, I would suggest, well, you want to be really healthy to do a dry fast. You want to be in really good health. I wouldn't recommend anybody to do a dry fast if they weren't in really, really good health. That their body can take on that added stress. We're already in a lot of stress. Mm-hmm. Just living here, just living on the planet, we're in a lot of stress already.
Yeah.
Whether we're aware of it or not, mm-hmm. we're in a lot of stress. So, yeah, dry fast is interesting. One of the fasts that I used to do a lot of years ago, like 20, 30 years ago, was the Master Cleanse. Do you know about that one?
No.
You can look that up on my site too, anybody who's interested. And it's an interesting one with, it was by a man by the name of Stanley Burroughs. And yeah, I did it even, during pregnancy, I even did a Master Cleanse during late, I was in my 8th month. And I was in a yogic ashram, doing yogic practice at the time, and we were coming together for a fast. So I did do that for a few days during that time. But we would do 2 weeks of master cleansing, not pregnant, and that's a very, very powerful fast. Yeah.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But again, there's the important thing about fasting is how we prepare and how we come out of it. If someone's in a poor state of health, you have to really prepare for fasting. Mm-hmm. Fasting causes the body to get rid of impurities. And it's at what level we want to take that healing crisis. And we have to really consider the health of the body in so doing. So it's really important. Some people will prepare. I say on my site, if you're going to do more than a 3-day fast, it's a spiritual calling. And that, we have to be prepared, we have to prepare. And, 3-day fast, many people can do that and really, really, truly benefit from that. One of the things that I think is good for just about everyone is intermittent fasting as a practice, as a daily practice, and then a 1 day a week, 24-hour fast.
Oh.
That can be very helpful because what's called autophagy, which is basically the body trying to get rid of all the junk that it doesn't need, all the cellular die-off. and it's just called autophagy. And during a fast, the body really ramps that up and really puts its energy into getting rid of all of that stuff that we don't want. So yeah, so that's always what I would say a safe practice is for somebody to do. A one day a week fast is really good.
It seems manageable, but the very thought of doing even more than one day would be, for me, quite a stretch. Basically,
well, we think that, Jackie, until we do it.
Exactly.
Because we in the fasting process, even with the intermittent fasting, we'll come up with a lot of our attachments. We'll see a lot of our attachments, and attachments often come in the form of comfort foods like carbs and sugars. And by intermittent fasting, we can become aware of those things and start to release the attachments, because carbs, high carb diet, a high grain diet is not beneficial for the human biome. It just isn't. So by releasing those attachments and, gradually, some want to do it gradually and some do it over a long period of time. But we get to see them. We get to see where our attachments lie. And then that's when we know what we can decrease in our nutrition.
Yeah.
And when we do that, this really interesting things happening, especially with carbs, is we stop craving them, because carbs have a hold on glucose, and it's like our body, it's like this fast hit, and we feel really good. It gives us this really, really good feeling for a period of time, much like caffeine. When we release those things, then the body stops, over a period of time, that biochemical addiction ceases, and we don't have that anymore. We don't have that. And of course, with our when we're doing our emotional work, we're releasing the attachment to it at the same time. And then those things just drop away. It's really beautiful. And then the body just gets healthier and healthier.
Oh, really? Thank you, Illia. I just two more things. I forgot the name of it again. It will come to me. But one friend has said to me to have a couple of drops of chlorine dioxide every day.
I don't do that.
Right.
I'm not the person to ask about that. No, that's not something I've read a little bit about it, but that's not part of my process.
I had a really bad throat about a month ago. Very, could hardly speak. In fact, rung the 111, and they were going to send an ambulance because I couldn't swallow. It was that bad. And she said from that it would probably help me to have this chlorine dioxide, a couple of drops in water a day. So I did get some, and I've been taking it, but I don't know. And the other thing is iodine. That was it. Iodine. Would you recommend that every day?
I was just going to mention that. So there's so many different types of iodine, and it's they can, the actual ingestion of iodine can become toxic very quickly. Oh. So what I do is I get a bioavailable iodine, liquid iodine, and I put it with some food grade 3% hydrogen peroxide, and I keep it in a spray jar, just a little spray bottle. And if there's anything in the throat that I think is, needs to go quickly, then I'll spray, and I'll do that fairly regularly until it's, completely gone. Now, one of the things that I do, as far as, because we need iodine every day, like the thyroid requires iodine, and the thyroid doesn't have a method of preservation of iodine. So it's not storing it, in other words. So we need to have iodine in our diet every single day. So I take a little bit of kelp every day, a little bit of North Atlantic kelp. I don't do anything in the Pacific anymore. it's far too polluted. So, but anything from the North Atlantic kelp, really good, clean, high quality kelp. I just do a little bit of that every day, just to make sure that the thyroid has what it needs. And that's really, really important to health. Yeah. But as far as using it to, to kill, any kind of infection or some, kind of a pathogen that's trying to get in. Of course, the throat is where it stops and tries to, it's a nice warm area. And that's where it tries to, procreate. So the quicker we get it, the better in the throat.
Yes. Yeah. And magnesium. Would you suggest magnesium every day?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Magnesium is so important. I don't supplement with calcium. Calcium I get from my food. We can be over-calcified very, very quickly, but magnesium is extremely important. So I take a few different kinds of magnesium. That's also, back to the simplicity, complexity, simplicity. Everything can be put under that if we can remember that from this talk, that those three things. So we want to have really high quality everything that we put in our bodies or on our bodies. We want it to be of the best quality we can find. Mm-hmm. So magnesium and potassium go really, really well together. So I'm not going to recommend publicly potassium because some people can't take it. I have never seen anyone that can't take magnesium. And the way you've gotten enough magnesium is that you're getting loose bowel. There's a couple of things to that. Loose stool, I should say. There's a couple of things to that, though. Right when you first start taking magnesium, you may get loose stool for a period of time. So you just keep going, and then it'll kind of gradually regulate. But yeah, magnesium is really important.
Well, thank you so much, Illia. Really enjoyed this talk, and I'm so sorry about the start, but it's just one of those things that won't happen again because Fiona sorted it out for me. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jackie. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate all that you do. And you're a like a veteran videocaster. When I read that you've been doing this for over 10 years, that's really impressive.
But not on video. I was doing 7 years in person, and it was just because of the last 3 years I was pushed to come on here. But oh my goodness, it's opened the world to me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, wonderful.
I can feel your energy coming all the way across the pond.
Thank you so much. I've loved this talk. So yeah, hope we do it again, actually, Illia. That's all right.
I'd love to.
Okay. Thank you. And it'll be much smoother.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, anyone that's watching. And any questions, I can either direct them to Illia or she will see them. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, you can email me. My email's on my site. Anybody, wants to email me, that's fine.
Oh, brilliant. And I will post the website under this video. And it will also go on my website, jackie-white.co.uk.
Oh, thanks, Jackie.
Thank you. Lots of love.
Lots of love to you. Mwah.